Okay, you have your own version now of In Christ There's No East or West, I hope, and it changes a little bit every time. And you're probably thinking, okay, now can you show me how John really played it? That's where we're going next. In this segment, we'll take a look at what I just played there, which was John's first time through, the slowed version, which he starts with, plays it a couple times like that, then goes into the double time version, and then comes back and plays the single time version again. Now, so in this one, I've got tab to as close to as exactly as I could, as close to as exactly is not part of that word here. To what John played. And the an important thing about this kind of thing is you can learn new stuff by playing songs exactly the way somebody played them. John had a very heavy, deliberate style, and you might have noticed that as I was playing it. And that'd be something you could work in instead of having it sound like this. Now a little softer, more subdued. And if you want to sound like John, get a couple of metal finger picks and a metal thumb pick, well, plastic thumb pick, and learn to play heavy. Anyway, that's the idea. So we're going to work our way through this tab in just a minute. I want to recommend that you pick up this album if you can find it. This was his first album, Blind Joe Death. It got reissued a few years later, and this was I believe the '67 reissue. And in his early album days, the reissues had these really interesting covers. This is, of course, called Blind Joe Death, who was the character that John supposedly discovered. And it was John, and Blind Joe was playing on one side of this album. So anyway, the artwork on these albums is really cool. The second one was called Death Chants, Breakdowns, and Military Waltzes. This included, I believe, no, it didn't. Yeah, that was on the third one. It had Take a Look at That Baby, which is another song that we have a lesson on here. And then the third one, The Dance of Death and Other Plantation Favorites. This had The Last Steam Engine Train, I believe. Yes, there we go. Oh, and Gimme Cornbread When I'm Hungry. So some other tunes that we've done on here. So anyway, I think if you can find any of these early Fahey albums, nowadays the CD reissue of Blind Joe Death is called The Legend of Blind Joe Death, and it includes both versions of the record, the 1959 version and I believe the 1963 version, if I got my dates right. So anyway, that's it for talking about John. When we get into the last segment, we'll take a look at the double time one next. But coming up, I'll get in here a little bit closer, and we'll just kind of work our way through the tab here, and I'll talk about some of the things that are kind of important there. But in the meantime, take a look at it yourself. And see what you can come up with. But my explanation next. Well, let's break down the first page. Right now, that's the only one they have, depending on when you're looking at this, of John's version, where he starts off with a little quote from the melody. The song at the end, that's the final phrase in the main melody. And what he does is play it in the bass with a little bit of strumming. Great little intro. Now, what you want to do here is start with a whole G chord on. In particular, have this high note already on. Then we're going to pick out these bass notes almost bluegrass style with our thumb, and then we're going to be doing some strumming. Now, sometimes I'm going to strum downs with my middle and index fingers to get a soft nail sound, I guess, and I'll be strumming the ups with my index finger so down with the ring and middle fingers, and then up with the index. Other times, I'll want to get that strumming sound with the invisible pick. I want a little bit more harsh, kind of in-your-face sound. So, opens up with the G chord on. We're going to pick out this little bass line. Nothing to it there. Keep the high G on, hammer on from A to B, to the D, and now we start our strumming. A down and an up, and now we pick out the E in the bass. And every one of those bass notes then was followed by a little upstroke. Now for that D7 chord, that's when I would go with the invisible pick, using my index finger for the down, so I want a little bigger bite on it, and then come back, hit the G in the bass, strum it, to a C with G in the bass. John also played very close to the bridge most of the time, but I always get a really harsh sound. Okay, then we get into the intro. We're starting with our G chord, and now we're going to keep your thumb's going to be playing the bass notes. This is standard finger picking stuff. So we pick out, now John only played with 2 fingers, so when you do that pinch here with on the G chord, you'd have his second finger come in and pick out the next melody note. Now we add the D in the melody, drop down, keep the D on when you move to an F in the bass and an A in the middle. Okay, here we are, the double time version, section B I'm calling this one, which is when John picks it up and moves into keeping a double bass going. Bass notes are now quarter notes. So, got to keep that rolling. This part has a couple of really tricky things. So we're going to break this down. I'll walk through it pretty slowly, measure by measure, in just a second, and talk about the 2 really specific things that are tricky. There's a quick hammer-on right there in the beginning, and then the triplet roll. I remember the first time I heard that in a Fahey song, I believe it was Horses or Beverly, anyhow, I thought that is one of the coolest things I've ever heard. So we'll work on that as it happens in the measure, about the 7th measure there, I guess. So I'm going to get in here a little bit closer and we'll continue with the breakdown of the double time version. So you should now have both pages of tab to this, and of course on the second page we're looking at the double time version. It really just opens up with the same 2 melody notes, although we could start the bass there, maybe with a double bass if we want, but in the melody gets syncopated here, where in the slower time version we've got the pinch right on beat 1. And in the double time version, we delay that note a beat and follow it with a filler note on the and of beat 2. So as we start that measure, it starts with the bass note alone, the G. Well, I hope you enjoyed this lesson and getting to work on In Christ There's No East or West. I think what I'm going to do, just play it and see where it goes. hope you enjoy playing this song as much as I do and got a lot out of it. Listen to more Fahey.